great sleep, actually. Feeling good. Yeah. So, yeah, we're live here, August 14th, Rolland Market Mashup. Let's just start with DraftKings earnings. They just reported their conference call is going to go on at the same time as us. And they beat on revenues, missed on profits. I think they were projected to do like 66 mil. They ended up doing 70 mil. My original take on it when I saw that and just kind of running the numbers in my head is that company has a lot of growing to do to get to its valuation. And obviously it's a big growth stock and I'm sure they will eventually get there. But like when I'm doing the math and in my head, I'm like 70 mil for a quarter in revenues. All right, let's say this is a slow quarter and they're doing like 300 mil a year in revenues. Company's valued, what is it, like $6-7 billion company? So they have a lot of.
That's the problem with a lot of companies right now. Is the stock price being, it's basically overvalued, and you got to make your quarters every quarter, or they're going to punish you.
I think these guys are dead money for a while, personally. I'm annoyed I own any. I should have listened to my gut 2 months ago.
Well, anyway, we'll see what they say in the conference call. I'm sure they'll.
I see that stock being shit in the bed today hard. I don't see that. Those revenues to me are alarming. I think that.
No, it's not unexpected numbers there.
No, I get that, but I don't think they're big enough to just to be powerful enough to combat what's coming with FanDuel, and I don't know. That kind of concerns me a little. I thought they were going to be way bigger than that.
Let's also keep in mind the stock has run up 15% in the last 2 days. So I was kind of, when I saw yesterday how much it ran up, and that was after the day before, I was in my head like, damn, like this is kind of the earnings right here being built right into the stock, where it was going to be hard, in my opinion, for the stock to go up. But don't get me wrong. It wouldn't shock me if you see immediately reversal in that stock where it turns green in about 30 minutes, because that CEO, I would expect, has a lot of good things to say. And I think right now people are, selling first and then kind of going to sit back and see what he has to say. And it wouldn't shock me if the name goes, keep my eye on it. I obviously have a pretty sizable position in DraftKings. Right now it's down about $2.25, which amounts to a little over 6%, which again is the amount that they were up yesterday. So as of now, all they've done is race yesterday's rally, which was.
I love that. I think long term they're a grand slam without a doubt. Dan, I know we've talked offline. The notion of being able to allow anybody, like a peer-to-peer, to gamble. I think we are heading to that era with all these regulations changing, where we don't have to rely on an arena of like a college or pro sport to take place. The thought of that, if that's even an inkling of on the roadmap, when we start hearing about that, when you think about the market cap increase from that situation, I know that's not even in the plans yet, but I know that's what's going to happen. There's no doubt. It has to.
Yeah, also, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, the entire group is lower right now, so that's partially part of the decline also. Not that it's in line with the other ones, but let's see what happens with that. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I wake up this morning and it seems like, for whatever reason, the narrative about a massive second wave for the coronavirus coming and people being concerned and Europe implementing these quarantine laws, it seems like we're, I don't want to say right back to where we were a month ago, the narrative of COVID, but I woke up and I was just like, what is going on right now? How is this?
Look at the numbers. That's all in the data. It's all manipulated. Look at the death and the case and the test counts. It's an election year.
Well, no, the numbers went up in Europe. That's what people were concerned about today.
Yeah, I don't personally believe that. But
France and Spain have gone up. So this has nothing to do with the politics.
I find that hard to believe personally. I don't buy into what we're reading with those numbers.
But it is interesting here that as soon as the number of cases per day went down, they started to report the number of deaths.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
This is a lagging indicator that deaths are higher after the cases.
I saw something really enlightening yesterday that I think it was, Dan, your girlfriend might have posted this about I think it was her, in China, people, they ask everyone, why do you even watch the news? It's fake. So people in China, like the residents, when you think about it, I never even thought about that. Like the masses don't even take the news there seriously because they know it's censored and bullshit. So maybe that's something for us to think about as a public.
Well, I think here most people watch the news for entertainment.
Oh, I'm sure, but I wanted to let you guys know I was on YouTube last night, just out of curiosity. I pulled up Tucker Carlson, his show. It was censored. Like they would cut out parts of it and move to another point. We're talking about, Google owns YouTube. So I thought that was very interesting how it just was. I felt like I was in China. It was pretty ridiculous. I never thought I'd see that in America, but I guess we're in a new world.
Yeah, we
and
sure are.
So today, the futures look mixed. I mean, it's tough this market's tough because Monday it looked like we were getting a rotation into recovery stocks. It looked like that was maybe a one-day thing. And so then tech's kind of taking over again. And, I kind of positioned myself for some of these recovery stocks to be the ones to kind of power us through here. I'm wrong. I mean, we're right back to just all these big cap tech names, which had a sell-off for like a week, hardly anything, that are just charging again. I don't know how sustainable that is.
I mean, Dan, I know you heard Kramer's call last night from yesterday.
Actually, I've only listened to like the first parts of it. I'm still.
Well, he made some great points about why he's not selling these tech names. Like when you even look at a Facebook, how much of a great job they've done pivoting with small businesses. A couple months ago, they were the bad older brother bully when you think about it with advertising, and all of a sudden they're helping small businesses. We've seen it ourselves with community building, with advertising. We spend money on Facebook. I think he was just highlighting that it's tough to sell tech stocks with how much they're coveted right now. Same with Apple, with services. You look at Microsoft, he was highlighting the TikTok deal, which is probably going to happen. And it's hard to not own that stock going into that narrative. And, he was just, it wasn't even that he was ultra bullish on the next few months. I think him and his colleagues on the show were basically highlighting there's certain stocks here to protect yourself from if there is a sell-off, like the Honeywells, the DuPonts, the NLOKs. So I think Kramer's kind of just looking at it like, hey, we're not selling off these tech behemoths because there's a lot of upside with what's going on in the world right now. But there's a way to, downside your risk, limit your risk.
What he does is he calls it the barbell approach.
Yeah.
He's got both positions.
Which is smart. I've taken his lead with a few of those plays with waste management. And, it just allows us to have more peace of mind. I know, Dan, when me and you first got in the market, we naturally, as eager investors early on, as novices, we were all in on these big tech stocks, top heavy. I could say personally, I owned way too much Facebook, and it worked out great for me. And it would have even if I owned as much as I still did. But it's smart to have parity for anyone getting into stocks for the first time. Make sure to spread your eggs out. Dad, I know your father, our grandpa, told us early on, have 10 anchors, 10 valuable stocks that you want to hold long term, and then kind of pick your spots around that. And I always thought that was really good advice.
Yeah, and his portfolio, I have not changed that much, and he still has.
And can you highlight that, Dad? You haven't changed it that much. And how has that looked like if you would have just closed your eyes the last 5 years with that situation?
He did very well.
So that shows for
part of the reason he did well is because he had Apple and Microsoft and Google.
Okay, well, but he held his ground. He didn't sell up.
What's up?
No, I was going to say that's all you need, those companies. I also
if you had only those three names, you could not show up for 10 years.
Well, you know what they're saying is keep it simple, stupid, KISS, right? So at the end of the day, I think people overthink sometimes how to make money. And
right now it's difficult to day trade because the market's so all over the place. And that's what's difficult. I mean, if you just sat back with your portfolio, you're doing okay in the last week or two.
Or the last few years. If you're not touching anything and just every few years looking, And
no, when Danny says it's been difficult since Monday, it's not that difficult if you're not doing anything, because the stock's done very well. But as soon as you start to do something, it's difficult to get it right in the real short term here.
Yeah, and I also kind of mean it's difficult if like you do have a diverse portfolio right now, and you started to get more diverse out of tech over the last couple of weeks, thinking that there had to be some sort of catch up from these other stocks. That seems like it was maybe a very, very short term thing. Like it looked like the banks were gonna maybe go into a hardcore rally, and they just didn't. It was a very, very small little thing.
It's tough to like banks right now.
Well, there were a couple of things that came out that I didn't even realize this week. I was talking about it before the show started, and one of them was the Fannie Mae is charging a tax on transactions, and that could slow down the real estate boom that we've been seeing. Not a lot, but
can that help any stocks?
No, it just helps the government get money from transactions. It's taken away money from anyone doing a transaction. So, that's just a mild negative. Not that that's what caused the banks to stop going up. I really think this Tesla news had a big impact just because they're doing a split after Apple. There's a general belief out there that a lot of these big names are going to start doing splits, and people are trying to anticipate that. And there is zero economic advantage to a split, as we know.
But Dad, it's not about economic advantage.
No,
it's about less barrier to entry for new investors with less cash.
Yeah,
it's just silly concept that a stock splitting is going to cause it to increase market cap by billions and billions of dollars.
I don't, Dan, but when you really think that through, you've seen it firsthand with people we've talked to where they think a stock, they're hesitant to buy it because of the price of the stock. And like Dad taught us early on, just because a stock is cheap in price doesn't mean it's expensive, or vice versa. And there's just that sentiment with people that aren't really that gung-ho about the market day to day, that don't know much.
It's interesting you say that, because a few weeks ago, or I should say a few months ago at this point, when like the Robinhood frenzy really started, I remember saying I almost like the fact that you got Amazon as a quadruple digit stock, because the Robinhooders aren't going to really mess around with that. It's too expensive of a stock. It makes me just think it's not forming this unrealistic bubble around it. And now what we're kind of talking about is that's about to go out the window if all these companies just split to cater to these retail investors. And then I go back in my head and I'm like, I still don't think that they outweigh, the hedge fund investments and like the big money that's in the market, where if you see Microsoft split and all of a sudden it's a $50 stock at the same value, and just because it's $50 it runs up another 20%, you got to think that's met with serious sellers who, this is different than penny stocks, where there's not like serious money that's just waiting, and if the gains are right, they're going to turn it into profit. So I think that's just insane. I'm not saying that clearly it is happening. I mean, Tesla is now going up for that exact reason. Like, it looked like that was it, and now they're just right back to being a favorite stock because of the split, which is insane to me. But that's
they actually got an upgrade today. Somebody went from a sell to an equal weight. They finally threw in the towel. It's like stupidity to even look at these.
Well, it's stupidity to bet against Elon Musk. I don't know what people are doing still in that mode, but hey.
Yeah. Bank of America upgraded Tesla to a neutral today, and they raised their price target from 800 to 1750.
So how do you even take them seriously?
You can't.
No, I'm not talking about Tesla. I'm talking about Bank of America.
Right. I agree.
I hear that, and I'm like, so next time they do any type of upgrade on a stock, I'm like, okay, this means nothing.
Well, that analyst is obviously, trying to figure out how to get back into the game.
I've realized I've done so well lately off just not paying attention to any of these people. It's all just noise to me that contradicts itself. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a strategy in itself. Right?
Just to switch gears entirely here, Dad, I know we were all texting last night about the crypto world a little after seeing the Winklevoss
Bobby
twins.
Bitcoin. Bob's jumping on.
That was the best interview that I've seen on Bitcoin since you guys have been talking about it. Simple explanation, and I think that hit home for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it hit home for you. I can tell that not response last night on the text. You're definitely going to be.
What I thought was interesting is I could see Elon Musk sitting on an asteroid, mining gold, and sending it back, and gold goes down to zero.
That was the one thing when they brought that up. Those guys talk about being visionaries. I love where their heads are at. That's not even physically possible. I was looking into that. Asteroids, if you mine gold on asteroids, it changes the trajectory of the asteroid. So that could kill the Earth. So there's no way that Elon Musk is he's up to something.
No, but there is absolutely plans to mine.
Of course there is. Yeah. It's awesome. And that right there.
What are we looking at? We're probably looking at least 50 years away. Right?
But you can't, Elon Musk can't do that to Bitcoin. That's why, Dad, it's time for you to jump on.
What I like is this website that the Winklevoss twins run. It's easy to buy and sell.
I love their story about how they were
stuff, right?
Yeah, that was hysterical. How they were like, yeah, the movie. I feel like they didn't really describe dudes chilling in Ibiza, getting hard in Bitcoin. Like, they were trying to come off as like these cool jocks in that interview yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
Cracking up.
But what's interesting, Bitcoin, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it went up like 300 or 400 points when that.
Let me just say, you got to stop with this. Bitcoin has been trending now for over a month. We've been talking about it every day, and it had nothing to do with that interview. It's acting like a commodity with gold, silver. It's trending up. Let me ask you, because I didn't watch the interview. What was said? Because don't get me wrong, I don't understand Bitcoin like more than anybody else. And
right. Well, what he basically did is he gave the simplest explanation of what a Bitcoin basically is. And then Davey, who was interviewing him, said, well, can you make a Bitcoin called Davey Portnoy? Or,
and you could.
We'll send over some engineers tonight and we'll start it up.
I love how they're neighbors. That's what's so funny. They walked right next door. I guess they're renting a place next to him or something.
But I think that interview went on around 3:30 in the afternoon. And if you look at Bitcoin, right after that, it went up like 300 or 400 points. And maybe it's a coincidence, but it wouldn't surprise me if 1,000 people went on at the same time and bought, a Bitcoin.
Ed Jarvis. What's up, big cookie Jarvis?
That's what I guess I always wonder is how many people does it take to buy Bitcoin, whether it's 1, 2, for the price to go up? Because it's not
in a short window of time, you could skew it, but it's still up. It's hung in there.
Well, yeah. I think we've seen over the last few months, if Portnoy starts pushing the Bitcoin, which he's clearly doing now, he's going about it. You're going to see the retail crowd start to crowd into it. There's no doubt about it. That's just what happens.
That's why I also loaded up yesterday. A little more Tezos, Chainlink, Ethereum. You're going to see these start popping off.
So look, I go back to what I've always said. It's just like buying gold. The only difference you could throw in there now is that you can mine gold in the future.
Dad, if you actually think that, then you should be throwing the kitchen sink at Bitcoin right now. If you actually are using that analogy, you're a smart guy. Like, you have to get on this. I don't want to be talking to you in 4 or 5 years where you're sitting me and Dan down like, can't believe I missed that, boys. It's going to happen. I guarantee it.
Look, I thought the most interesting thing that someone threw out, and I think I told you guys about this a couple of days ago, was that one guy that's been I'm not even going to say his name on here, but he's been beyond correct about the stock market since the pandemic has started. And he's obviously big on Bitcoin. And
why aren't you saying his name?
Sure, Thomas Lee. He's been on CNBC a lot. He's been very sharp throughout this pandemic and has been bullish and has been correct. and even as much as this week thought that there was going to be somewhat of a rotation. It ended up only lasting a day, so we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, he said that Bitcoin, once it hits 40,000, which he thinks happens soon, it's then worth $1 trillion and then becomes a legit commodity. And then what you'll have is you'll have investing companies all over the world treat it no different than gold and silver, or they'll have it as part of their portfolio just because it's looked at as a legit commodity. And I don't think anyone thinks Bitcoin's going to replace the currency we use today as much as it's going to be looked at like gold or in a legitimate way.
And if that is the case, then people will put it in their portfolio. You know, if they're thinking, okay, I'll put 5% in gold, maybe they'll put 4% in gold and 1% in Bitcoin.
Or maybe 2.5% in gold.
Well, I don't know. But the point is, it's not going to be anything other than that.
Yeah, but that's what Dan's saying. Institutional investors then are going to be creating their allocation around that theory. So you're going to see way more money piling into crypto.
Well, so he was saying it gets to 40,000, it'll then go into the deep six-figure range due to institutional investing needing to.
It's all math. It's math.
So yeah, it's just
it still is a concept that's very difficult to grasp, that someone is making something out of nothing.
I don't know.
And calling it a commodity.
What is a dollar bill made out of? Toilet paper? Like they were saying yesterday. When did that start? Seriously, though, you could say
the dollar bill represents the United States.
Represents, yes, exactly.
So what does Bitcoin represent?
Digital gold.
A bunch of guys in a computer room making a currency.
Yeah, how do you trade stocks? Do you do it with actual hard dollar bills or electronically?
Yeah, no, I get all that, but it has nothing to do with
All right, well, you'll see me being really rich off this in a couple of years, and I'll take you to dinner, and we'll talk more about it then.
Yeah, but you'll end up paying for that dinner in dollars.
No, I won't. I treat that. It's going out of Bitcoin.
Let's check in on DraftKings right now. Still, yeah, I mean, I don't know what he's saying. We're obviously not listening to the call. The stock is, I just want to say, it's higher than where it was before open yesterday.
It's inching up.
What?
It's inching up.
Wow.
It's not inching up, but it's not getting
back to 34.
Yeah, well, it's down 6%. It had a big run up the last 2 days, so I think the thing to keep in mind here is it might have had its run up based on positive earnings over the last 2 days, and maybe it's one of those things where it didn't matter what they said, there was going to be sort of a sell-off. Are there any other stocks you guys are looking at today?
Well, I added to my Zillow position. I told you, Dan, before the close yesterday when it dipped, got in more at 74.68, I think. I just looked at that. I was following it throughout the day and kept waiting to get in again because it got up to 85 there after earnings last week for a second. So that type of dip, it was too appealing. I know Dad brought up the Fannie Mae tax, which I'm sure correlated to that short term.
The one thing I'll say about Zillow that's just been so strange to me, and I don't know if this is a new thing because I haven't followed their stock that much until recently, but they just trade on no volume. It's like there's no interest in the stock at all. Like even pre-market right now, literally zero when you look at volume. It's like there hasn't been a
changes intraday randomly. They have just random bouts of just craziness. It's strange.
Yeah, but overall, if you compare it to like a lot of the other stocks we talk about, like there's just zero.
Well, keep in mind their earnings were last week. I feel like at this point, it's kind of it's going to take a few weeks before anyone's jumping on that train again.
I mean,
talking about stocks, we've talked about Plug a lot. If we stuck with that stock, it's got to be one of the best trading stocks you could possibly play in because it gets into these ranges of 25 to 50 cents. And if you're just watching that stock all day long and put different parameters in, that could be a great vehicle to play around with day trading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a question about Ed Jarvis just asked what we think of Sleepy Joe Biden pick for VP. I mean, I think like Dan said yesterday, Ed, there was a Wall Street article sent out that Harris is good for Wall Street. So clearly, if that wasn't the case, we would have seen more of a sell-off this week, in my opinion. If you saw like a little.
Look,
Yeah.
Kevin O'Leary was on this morning. He said it best. He said, if you ask any CEO publicly, they're going to say they're for Biden. But he can tell you for sure because he talks to hundreds of CEOs and smaller companies, and that's not the case.
Well, then Biden won't be in office.
There's a lot of lying going on when it comes to public talk about who the candidate is going to be.
Well, all that says is we're in for a repeat of 4 years ago. But let's get back to stocks.
Yeah, let's go over some levels with Plug here. I like where you're at. So, I mean, just looking at the 3-day chart, I can't pull it up right now because I don't have my normal setup because I'm outside right now. But
well, I mean, basically the stock topped out about 12.35, and then they did the secondary. They priced it at 10.25. Tremendous volume around 10.25. It went a little bit lower, and there was solid buying. And then the stock ran out of supply, and it ran all the way back up almost to 12, and gave up a little bit. And now it's trying to find a new level. But you could basically trade this stock 11, 12 until it doesn't work, and you could tighten it up. Right now it's 11.37. I mean, I would play at 11.25 on the buy side, 11.75 on the sell side, and I would just put orders in on both sides and see how it works. And you could do some close stops on both sides where you might lose 15 or 20 cents, but if you're right, you'll make 50 or more. So
yeah, I love where your head's at. When I was trading Plug, it was definitely, I don't want to call it easy, but just it seemed like it was in a very specific range. And then I still feel like I'm licking my wounds from when I had a short going into.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you day trade. If you get a big hit, and we both lost on it, it's hard to go back into it and get going again. And sometimes the best way to do that is to play a much smaller size than you normally would, just to get the feel for it again. So if you're playing, let's say 5,000 shares, go in there and just play 1,000 and see how it works. You get back into the ebb and flow of the stock. You have to be able to be in it to really get the groove again. So
yeah, no, I like what
that goes for any stock. If you're playing a certain size, just cut it way down when it's not working and start over.
It's definitely a good tip. And I also think to add to that, you can't be afraid to entirely just cut out your losers and be done with them. And,
yeah, and that's always good to do, is look down your portfolio, and if you got losers, cut out the 2 worst, right? And if you do that every couple of weeks, you're going to end up with a lot more winners. And that's easier said than done. Yeah, that all the time.
I don't like losing.
You're constantly waiting for your losers to become winners.
Because in your head, you think you're absolutely right. How can you be wrong?
Well, today, it'll be interesting. I know it's just been tough. I right now I'm long play Dave & Buster's. I think it's starting to develop some support at 15. Dad, I know you said you don't like the chart.
Yeah, Dan, I was looking at that myself. I don't think I could jump on that one with you. I am not feeling it.
That's fine. I had the biggest trade of my life this week in play as far as profits go. So I'm sticking with it. It's been acting well. And if there is any news of a vaccine or any news of a way to deal with this that makes people more confident, this is one of the names that's going to just go through the moon. It's
I just don't think that vaccine's coming as soon as people think. And that's also why I'm hesitant to jump on play as we're heading into the fall here soon. That kind of makes me a bit worrisome. I think there's some headwinds there to think about.
I hear you. I mean, waking up this morning and seeing the narrative be back on, another spike and just all the different things.
That's just Trump's picking up steam. That's all just, we have to keep the facts in front of us with data.
Yeah.
At these numbers.
If you look at the daily chart, I mean, you could feel a lot more comfortable about it if it trades 13.75 to 14 and getting in there.
Yeah, I don't like the
argument. Can you make the argument that like maybe it's past those levels now and maybe it's going to hold at 15, which it's
you could definitely make that argument if if the absolute fundamentals back it up. I don't know if they do yet. So
I'm hesitant about people showing up at Dave & Buster's this fall and winter. That's where I don't like jumping on something where it's requiring people showing up for entertainment.
Look, I think if they get these tests where you can go to a place and get tested and have a result in 5 minutes, then people will go everywhere. And that's coming. I think that will be the way it's going to be going forward.
When is that coming now?
Probably within 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, right after the election.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. And Mike, enjoy your time in Maryland. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Talk to you guys Monday.
Hopefully,
What's up there?